Hi, thanks for watching our presentation about inquiry-based learning. We're just really excited about this. There's so many aspects that you can use inquiry-based learning in, and any content basically that you are teaching can be used through inquiry-based learning. So we're really excited about this. If you click on the QR code or you scan the QR code there, you will be able to get this whole presentation and all the resources that are embedded in this presentation. So we're just excited to get started.
Yeah, just to introduce ourselves, my name is Katie Dolan, and I am the librarian at Don Tyson School of Innovation here in Springdale.
And I'm Renee Greep, and I am the gifted and talented facilitator here for 6th and 7th grades.
Yeah, great to be here. So we started talking about this year when we were sort of brainstorming, right, about what we saw our teachers needed and what our students needed as far as inquiry-based learning and project-based learning.
So you can find this anywhere on the internet, but there are basically 4 steps to inquiry in your classroom. So you're going to start off with developing a question and researching the topic, having students present what they've learned, and then reflection. And so basically, this is just showing you the skills that you need to be teaching your students, not talking about any content, but the framework of how to go about inquiry and how about presenting it to their peers or to an authentic audience, and then reflecting on the whole process and what they learned from that process.
Yeah, that's neat. And I was asking Renee today, we were kind of trying to fine tune sort of definitions of things and talking about inquiry-based learning versus things like Genius Hour, project-based learning, and things like that. And so I actually did a online course with John Spencer that I love. I listen to his podcast if you haven't listened to that.
Yeah, he's really good.
It's wonderful. And he talks about project-based learning kind of being the umbrella term. And then things like inquiry-based learning, problem-driven framework, challenge-driven framework, design-driven framework, and interest-driven framework. And I think that interest-driven, where the students are using their own passion, their kind of the subjects they want to geek out on, that would be a good place to start in teaching this framework.
Yeah, it would. Typically, for years, it's been called Genius Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically whatever the student is passionate about. I started way back when it was first, just being talked about and not having any type of framework to go on for assessment or for presentations or any of that. I just kind of grew into it and figured it out on my own. But now we have so many resources for it. And like Katie was saying, it's really under the umbrella of project-based learning. But what you're teaching is the process.
The inquiry process.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is really neat because I think students have a lot of unique interests. I know last week I was talking to some students. We're building up our manga collection here in the library, and I've got hundreds of kids that are really excited about that. And I think they could probably stand in front of me and talk about manga for hours. And it would be really neat to see them do a project where they're having to do an interest-driven project and follow those frameworks for that.
Yeah, and it's really a real-world skill that they can learn how to do, because most jobs now, you have to, they say, okay, here, we want you to do this project. And so the students need to know, well, how do I go about that? How do I research? What are my big questions that we have that we've got to answer through this project? And then how am I going to present it in a real world situation to my employer? So it's really a skill that you're teaching that's going to follow that student for the rest of their life.
Right. And the thing that I'm going to talk about today with you really is on like curation of resources. So there's so many resources that are available out there, and how do you evaluate and curate those resources?
So here's just an outline of the 4 steps: developing the questions, researching, presenting, and reflection. And I have found this technique to be really great. We used it this year, especially in our social studies and English classes for 6th and 7th grade. And you can use this virtually any grade level. Students don't necessarily have to be able to write. So if you're looking at, a classroom of young children, you can still use this technique. And they have a website, if you'll notice there at the bottom, it says writequestion.org. So you can go to them and they will send you information every so often, kind of little newsletters, but they have lots of great videos on how to do this technique. This slide you are welcome to use and in your classroom to organize when you are going to do this process. And it really helps students develop those big questions and then even the smaller supporting questions, and to understand what's the difference between an open-ended question and a closed-ended question. It's just really a great tool. And they work in groups, and so it's very engaging. Students aren't just sitting at their desk or at their computer trying to come up with a question, but they're working as a group. So they learn how to get along with other people in the group to get to some really good questions that they can actually work with. And so I really recommend you using this technique. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but it's pretty well organized there on the slide. And if you go to their website, they have great videos, especially for your higher grades. It's really a fantastic resource.
You've had some really good luck with this, right?
Yes.
You've gone into the classroom, you've
Yes.
used it,
Yeah.
You've seen some really good results.
Yes. And the teachers really responded like, wow, I can't believe we got so many really good, deep questions from these kids that we have not ever been able to get from them before. And the students really enjoyed it and asked when I could come back and do it again. So I was
Seal
like,
of approval.
Yeah, that's
Good
great.
job. Good job. Yeah, I think that says a lot, though.
So you got to start with a good question, no matter what content it is, or even if it is just a passion, they've got to come up with a good question.
There we go. We're going to talk for a few minutes about curation. And this came up when I was doing the John Spencer project-based learning online course that he does. And I really like that. And I think if you're interested in project-based learning, inquiry learning, Genius Hour, it's a great course to go through. You can do it at your own pace, on your own time. And so they had one of the units was on curation. And so I'm going to give you a little overview of it and share some of the resources that I found that I loved. Here's a really quick video that just says, it just talks about curation. Okay, we had to start videoing again, and for some reason, our image now is flipped. So, same presenters, but new position. So, short video from John Spencer about what curation is.
We live in a world of instant information. With the tap of a button, we can read articles, watch videos, listen to podcasts, and engage in rapid-fire conversations about just about anything. And the traditional gatekeepers are gone, which is great for students. They can create and share their work in ways that were previously unimaginable. But there's a cost. If we're not careful, we can mistake the speed of consumption for the depth of knowledge. And that's why we need students to learn the art of curation. Curators ask thoughtful questions and find resources that are accurate and interesting. They geek out on the content, finding the takeaways and making sense out of new ideas. As this happens, curators organize their content into categories or themes. They make connections between seemingly opposite artists and ideas and disciplines in ways that make you think, man, I had never considered that before. And they're also able to determine trends from multiple sources. Eventually, they add their own unique lens and share their work with an authentic audience. And that's ultimately what we want students to learn how to do.
I love John Spencer. And I can't off the top of my head remember the name of his podcast, But just look it up, John Spencer, author, podcast, and I'm sure it'll show up. And he just really has got a great way of communicating kind of what's happening in the classroom and information about project-based learning. And he's just super inspiring. And I feel like with curation, because I'm a person who geeks out about a million things, so I am that one that just collects tons and tons of information about stuff. But with curation, you're really looking at evaluating and organizing your information so that it's usable for yourself and for other people. And so as part of that online project-based learning course I took, he shared obviously like a million great resources. Let me switch the slide. Hold on. There we go. And so I actually used one of the curation tools that he talked about to curate some information about curation. So like meta curation right here. And the one that I really liked initially when I first started looking through them was eLink. So I'm going to share what I created and also just real quick show you what it looks like on the side as you're building it. So this one page, web page I put together, probably took me maybe 15 minutes to make. Use one of their, I think that was a Canva image. Like all of this stuff is already sort of pre-populated. I just needed to tweak it. And then I just basically drop these resources into the links, and I'll show you what it looks like on the back side of it. And it comes out looking this nice. And it's not just a string of links. It's not just a page, your bookmark bar. I mean, like, here's my bookmarks and all of my, it's not just that. It's actually also sharing what is this resource? What kind of resource is it? And why is this resource important? I came in and edited some of this, but some of it just pre-populates as you put the link in. So here's what it looks like on the flip side. This is what it looks like when I'm making it. And so I have these 4 resources. And so look how easy this is. I went over here. Here's John Spencer's YouTube channel. Look at all of these videos he has. And they're all as like clear and like beautifully illustrated as that first one. So check this one out. You'll have it in these resources. So I'm going to share that link. I come over here, add this in here. And it's going to create that button, and it's even going to pre-populate the information. But I could go in there. There it is down here. So it picked the picture for me, gave me a title, gave me information about what it is. I would go in there and also say what kind of resource this is. So like that this is his YouTube channel, so that when I go back to look, I'll remember. Or if I'm going to share it with somebody, it'll have meaning.
Right. Or it could be something that you require, that you're wanting to do a little summary for each each link or resource. So they can go in there and they can customize it to the summary. So that can be part of what you require in your classroom.
Yeah. So the way I've seen teachers using it, one would be to share resources with students or with other coworkers of yours if you're sharing resources. The other I've seen, and we've got an 8th grade teacher who's used it a couple times, and she's had students use this to share their resources. And then, you have to annotate it. You have to give some information. Why is this resource important? What's the value in this resource? And so now when you come on over here and save it, easy peasy, like there it is. Okay. And then I put another link down here. So in the unpaid version, you can log into this using your Google account. But it only lets you do 5 resources. And for my 8th grade teacher, she was like, 5 is all we need for the students. Like more than that, it would be too much for the 8th graders. But just comes out looking very user-friendly, very visual, which for me, I really appreciate. And I want to point out here in this list that I created for you, this short podcast right here in the Cult of Pedagogy, this one was really, when I listened to this, it was like really opened my brain up to be thinking a lot about curation and how we can create students that can have skills for evaluation and organization using tools like this.
Yeah, and that one you can read. If you click on it, you can read it or you can listen to it. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's what's great about
I love
that.
a good podcast. So then I get into the podcast wormhole, but
so if you want to just skim it, you're not a person, I don't want to listen to the whole thing. or you're not auditory like that, you can just read it when you're on there. But that one is really, if you're thinking about doing this curation as part of your research, which we really recommend, that's a great way to start.
Absolutely. And then here I put this link in. Did you remember this was here
Yes,
from before?
yes.
This was the one that you really liked about another curation tool. So this sort of in this list is another.
Now that's more
tool.
for teachers, but you can also share it and teach your students to become their own curators and organizers. So that's kind of teaching them how to organize too. But yeah, we put that in there as well.
So that's available for you. And then, were you going to talk about this?
Yeah, we can talk about it. This is just another option for curation, is using a Padlet. A lot of you probably already use Padlet. And so I'm not going to, and this is a great video that you can watch that shows you all about how to use Padlet. And then I have a link of a Padlet example there. And we'll go to the next one. Oops. There we go. This is the Google Keep, another great video to watch. So to help teach you how all the ins and outs of doing Google Keep. It's really great if you're not already using it. And if you are already using it, you might still want to watch it, because I learned I used it all the time, and then I watched this and I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that, or I could do that. So that might be worth your time just to listen and watch that.
Yeah, summertime goal there for me, because there we go.
This is for those of you that might be using Schoology. You can do portfolios or blogging, and those two videos will tell you about that. And then there are 16 more tools. If those are tools you don't necessarily want to use, or you want to geek out on learning about curation tools, there's a great link there at the bottom.
Lots of great resources. So back to this one.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. All right. And this, I just put in conferencing, because conferencing is really important with keeping your students on track, one-on-one or even in small groups. Just sitting there, hey, where are you going? What are you doing? What's the next step? Here's to help. Conferencing with your students is so important. And I'm not just talking about younger grades, know that already, but the older grades, when you're talking about sixth grade on up, we don't necessarily use conferencing as much. And conferencing is really important for getting kids to get on the goals that they need. Yeah. So once they've gotten all of their research done and they've curated their resources and all of that, then you're going to be wanting to have a presentation and a culminating artifact of showing and presenting what they've actually done and learned. Right there where you see on the screen where it says use a rubric, that's a link to a rubric. It's just something I got off the internet. Yes, you can click on it. And so it's just to give you an idea of what a good rubric might be. You don't want it too complicated, but you want to look at what are the basic skills that you're really wanting students to learn, and how can they show you their learning there. So that's just an idea.
Page. Yeah, just one page.
Yeah. I would recommend showing students that rubric, and so they can refer to it throughout their work on this project, whatever project that you've decided for them to. Even if they're doing what we call it, the Genius Hour Passion Project, they still need a rubric. They still need to have some kind of assessment towards that.
Yeah, definitely. And it helps them also stay on track, right? That they make sure that they're not sort of wandering in the weeds.
Which that typically happens in a Genius
Which you
Hour.
can definitely end up doing really easily. So.
Yeah. So here's some ideas on this next slide is on how to present, and to give students a choice board option of all kinds of, these are technical ways that they can use tech to present their projects, but of course, they can create an artifact, that is made too. That's entirely on what your inquiry project is about, and up to you what you're willing to have them to present. So, but these are some real easy options for you. You can copy and paste and use this slide in your own classroom to get all these links. And at the bottom it says, this doc with more. Those are even more ideas down there. So
I'm going to click it.
No, don't click it. But yeah, there's a whole lot more.
So many resources.
So many. And the last clip is reflection. And reflection is really important. What have they learned? Where are they going to go from this? And there's so many different options that you can do. You can go very low tech, sticky notes, to a journal where they're actually writing in a journal, or it could be an online journal.
Mm-hmm.
You can do a discussion if you're using Schoology or Google Classroom. You can have them do a little 2-minute Flipgrid where they're actually, talking about it, and you just give them a set of questions there to answer. You could do something like that. Or you can use a Google form, and you are welcome to make a copy of this Google form. I think that will show the copy. Yeah.
Here we go.
It looks like this, and it's very simple, but you are welcome to use it. And if you scroll down, there's a little choice board at the bottom that they can check on what to give you a lot. It gives you a lot of feedback about the project, and it also helps the students to really think about their thinking and their skill.
I was just thinking about that, like the process that happens in your head as you're doing an inquiry project and really understanding your own thinking. I think that's one of the strengths of an inquiry project is really knowing how your brain works.
Yes.
So that's it. I'm glad you included that.
Yeah. And that's the 4-step process. So we hope you really enjoyed this. We have. It has been fun, and we've really enjoyed using it in classes and seeing kids get really inspired and enjoying the content that they're learning in different classes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great joining you today, and you've got our contact information up there. If you have any questions or comments, you can just let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, great. Thank you.